If you're going to court, then you're going to need some evidence to win your case. Unsurprisingly, many cases these days are won or lost based on text messages, social media, or other solely digital communications. I'm going to explain how to preserve these items correctly. If you don't preserve them correctly, then the judge can exclude your evidence. Without evidence, you may have little chance of winning. I'm going to use text messages as an example in a minute, but the same principles apply to emails, Facebook Messenger messages, Twitter DMs, Snapchat conversations, or any other written digital communication. Before we get to the text, you need to know a little evidence to understand what exactly you need to preserve. For you to be able to use text messages, emails, and social media messages at trial, you need to show 1, that they are authentic and accurate copies of the originals, and 2, the identity of the author. Evidence that you use at trial must be authentic. That means you need to be able to show that the evidence is what you say it is. One of the most obvious difficulties in authenticating text messages is because you don't want to hand over your phone into evidence, so you need a reliable way to extract those messages. The most common way of authenticating text messages is to create screenshots of the messages and then provide your own testimony to prove that the screenshots are true and accurate copies of the originals. Where people usually fail in court is when they only take screenshots of certain portions of the conversation. If you only take screenshots of small portions of the conversation, then it is nearly impossible to show that there have been no edits, deletions, or alterations. The court needs to see the conversation in context to know that it is authentic for use in court. Simply showing that text messages came from a specific phone number is not enough. A friend could have taken the person's phone and said something hateful that the phone owner would have never said. Or the phone number could have been spoofed, and now you're getting text messages from a complete stranger. However, it doesn't take very much more in order to prove authorship. Your goal in demonstrating authorship is simply tying these text messages back to a specific person. For example, some courts have found that text messages received around the same time as phone calls with an individual, where the phone call referenced the text and the text referenced the phone calls, was sufficient to demonstrate authorship. It also helps if the text messages that you're receiving from an ex-wife or ex-husband contains information that only the ex would know. All of this helps to prove authorship. I'm going to demonstrate what I think is the best practice in preserving text messages in both a breach of contract case and a family law case. You should start thinking about these messages as conversations. You'd never want to jump into the middle of a conversation because it helps to have the whole picture. You may not end up using the whole conversation at trial, but as far as preserving messages, it really helps to have the complete conversation in case the other side accuses you of cherry-picking the good parts. Here we have text messages between our client and the opposing party for what may turn into a breach of contract. Surely you know that we generated these messages and that we're not posting our actual client's text messages on YouTube. As you can see here, there are several screens worth of text messages here. So we have to be careful that we preserve all of them to demonstrate that they are authentic, true, and correct copies. So we start at the top, and you should notice how we are careful to frame this first shot, and then we take a screenshot. Here, take note that we got the name saved in the contacts under opposing party, and ensure that the phone settings displays the person's phone number to demonstrate authorship. Yes, this actual phone number is blurred because I can't have everyone texting my poor legal secretary that helped me in creating this video. So just pretend that you're looking at the whole number. Next, notice how we are careful to show the date and time of the text messages because timing always matters. This can be difficult because if you take screenshots too soon, then it may simply show today or yesterday or simply the day of the week because the preference is to have the day, month, and year. When you go to trial in a year, it may be difficult for you to remember precise dates if all of your text messages simply say today on them and not an exact date. Next, and this is important, before you move from your first screenshot, take note of the last line of text on your first screenshot because we want to show overlapping lines of text. This helps to authenticate the text messages and show that there are no missing messages between your screenshots. I've actually had judges exclude the other side's text messages because there were gaps in the messages. Then you scroll up and be careful to frame your second screenshot. Notice how we've lined up that last line of text from screenshot 1 as the first line of text on the screen. With it lined up, now we take our second screenshot. Then you just keep going for as long as this conversation takes place, ensuring that the bottom line of text is the first line of text in the next screenshot. Okay, now let's turn to a family law case, which sometimes includes just a little more drama. Here, take note that we've got the name saved in the contacts under Drake's mama. Now, this is not the best practice, and you should use their full name for better authentication. But this isn't the worst name that I've seen someone called in someone's contacts. One time in court, I saw someone saved in the contacts as lying, cheating, whore. Okay, just as before, notice how we are careful to show the date and time of the text messages. Next, and don't forget that this is important, before you move from your first screenshot, take note of the last line of text on your first screenshot because we want to show those overlapping lines of text. This helps to authenticate the text messages and show that there are no missing messages between your screenshots. Then, you scroll and be careful to frame your second screenshot. Notice how we've lined up that last line of text from screenshot 1 as the first line of text on the screen? With it lined up, now we take our second screenshot. Then, you just keep going for as long as this conversation takes place, ensuring that the bottom line of text is the first line of text on the next screenshot. There, now that you understand the rules of evidence concerning authentication and authorship, and have seen demonstrated some of the best practices, in my opinion, on preserving text messages, you're in a better position to prepare trial exhibits in order to achieve success in the courtroom. But before you go to court, check out our videos on how to testify to win and how to use body language to your advantage.